I'm going to bring in now CBS News political director Fin Gómez. He's in Washington. And if our control room can, I'd like us to put back up for our viewers the graphic that shows all of the different people that the president-elect has tapped to be members of his cabinet or serve in major roles. And of all of them, Fin, I'm wondering, who do you think are the most surprising picks? Who do you think might have the most difficulty as the president-elect puts his nominations forward to the Senate for confirmation?
I think two of the names that have been announced today may be the most problematic with landing these picks to become actual cabinet members, and that is Pete Hegseth and, of course, now Matt Gaetz, the controversial congressman out of northwestern Florida. I do think these two are close to Donald Trump. They're close advisors. They're aligned with his way of thinking. They're aligned with his way of thinking of sort of rooting out what they call the deep state in both of these areas of government that, of course, the president-elect will oversee as the chief executive officer of the United States government. But, you know, they, as Olivia just laid out, as others have laid out, there is a bit of turbulence, both political, with their background and their acumen for these said positions. You know, but it's whether we saw today, Lana, we saw the president-elect here in Washington, D.C., surrounded by the support that he has, the leadership that he has in both cameras on the Hill here, both the upper chamber and the lower chamber that now are firmly red. So they believe, advisors that I spoke to who are close to the president-elect believe that they can land these two because of that majority that they have. Let's see if that happens. I think there are some Republicans who have been very surprised by both of these picks because they lack perhaps the criteria needed for potentially leading these very key and important positions and roles.
Well, and on that, Fin, I'm hoping to get your insight on what we heard from Senator Marco Rubio, who has also been selected or as Trump's pick as Secretary of State today. Most of the questions were not about his selection, but was rather about Matt Gaetz and his selection as Trump's pick to be Attorney General. And what we heard from Senator Rubio was really presidents are entitled to their appointments. That feels like saying, you know, today is Wednesday. It's not necessarily a value judgment or an endorsement in any way. What did you make of the senator's comments?
Well, I think it aligns again with what Donald Trump believes he's here to do. He has a mandate. He has a convincing win, of course, in the elections from a week ago. And he believes that he has this mandate, both the popular and the electoral vote, right, that he can now implement the leadership that he wants in these key roles, because again, he has the support of the majority of American voters. That said, he's also someone, as we know, and I've covered him since 2011, that he is someone he's an outsider coming in, right? He's not, as he's campaigned openly for, he's here to shake up and rattle what he calls the swamp of Washington. And I think, you know, in this sort of Jacksonian perspective that he has, he feels that he's entitled to these positions, to these decisions. However, again, like if you compare these picks and you compare them to previous administrations, including his own in 2016, they are very different. You know, they are very different in terms of the criteria, of the background, and of the experience that you typically expect in these very, very significant roles. But again, the number one quality here, the number one component that Donald Trump is looking for above all else is loyalty. And these two are very close advisors, and they do meet that threshold that he wants.
Let's talk a little bit more about Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, because they are controversial picks. And as you say, they don't have necessarily the same sort of resume you would expect from somebody who's being nominated for an attorney general or a defense secretary role in particular. Tell our viewers a little bit more about what usually are the criteria or the resumes for those types of leaders, and how Gaetz and Hegseth compare.
Well, let's look at his first pick for defense secretary going back to 2016. That incoming pick was General Mattis, what we would call the Mad Dog Mattis, right? And he had his general. He loved the background, the experience, this military experience that the Mattis did have. That did not end well, right? They frayed. He left the administration in a very bad. With a very bad perspective, if you will, of the president-elect. Also, you look at Bill Barr, right? So if you look at him, the former AG is someone again who was highly touted by Donald Trump when he came into the last administration, and by the time he left, it was a very acerbic. And a bad ending to that relationship as well. They both put that in their books. They're both very critical of the president-elect. And so now, more than ever, as we saw leading up to the election, Donald Trump wants loyalties. He wants fealty from the supporters, and he's looking at these supporters who were there when the times were lean, when he was early in the cycle, when he was behind in polling. If you remember, I mean, right after the midterms in 2022, there are a lot of people saying that Ron DeSantis was going to be the guy who was going to be the new standard bearer of the Republican Party, but these folks were there for him. These folks were there and advising him and still close to him. So that, above all else, for Donald Trump, is what matters.
Fin, that's really interesting. Your point about defense secretary and attorney general being two of the positions that the former president felt betrayed by in his first administration.